Well, we'll get
And I just, there we go, we're recording. And I just want to let everybody know that you will be receiving a follow-up email that will have a survey along with a copy of the handouts. We do ask that you please put all of your questions into the chat. The chat will be monitored throughout the presentation. Um, they may or may not respond right away. They may be holding some questions until the end, but go ahead at any time and please do put your questions in the chat. And Brittany, I will let you take it from here.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Shelley. I really appreciate everyone hopping on tonight. So we're going to talk about fostering sibling and peer relationships. Just welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on this nice Wednesday evening. My name is Brittany Doan. I'm a BCBA and also the Director of Program Integrity over at Behavioral Framework. We're an in-home ABA service provider in the DMV and also North Carolina, and we're always so grateful to partner with Pathfinders for things like this. So we're excited to be here. I'm really excited to talk about fostering sibling and peer relationships. It's so important for all families, but especially those with children with autism who may require additional support to create and maintain social relationships with peers, but also within their family unit and their siblings. So, to start off with just a little temperature check to see if you're in the right place, you could ask yourself, do your children struggle to relate to one another? Does your child have a hard time making friends? Are you worried that your child won't be able to keep the friends that they do have? Or maybe you're a teacher or clinician, BCBA, or another service provider looking for more information to better help the individuals that you serve. If you answered yes to any of these questions, the information in this presentation is for you. Creating and maintaining relationships is hard, as we'll discuss throughout the presentation. And so many caregivers and teachers and other professionals watch those close to them struggle in these areas. It can be upsetting to everyone involved if your children don't get along or if one of your children doesn't have friends. So luckily, there are some things that we can do to support success in these areas, and we'll go through those here today. First, we'll talk a little bit about autism and relationships. We know that autism impacts every individual differently. This means that everyone will handle social situations differently. Some people are extremely socially motivated, love to be around people and receive attention from others. There could still be some barriers in there with that regarding actually engaging in meaningful interactions or sustaining relationships. But maybe somebody's extremely socially motivated, and that's excellent. There could be other areas for growth with that type of individual. Some other individuals may not be as motivated by social interactions and require support to initiate, to engage, and ultimately sustain interactions and relationships. So, we're going to talk about how we can better this experience, but also take it one step further here and not only discuss the friendship aspect with peers, but also the sibling relationship. Sibling relationships are the longest lasting relationship that most individuals have throughout their life. There's so much potential here for similar age social interactions or just a buddy that goes around life with you in all facets of the child's day. So, looking at sibling relationships and determining how not only can we make them successful sibling relationships, but turn some of these into friendships as well is a wonderful area to discover and to support. The good news is that there are strategies to help support your child create and maintain these peer and sibling relationships. So that kind of sets the stage for why we're here. Some expectations related to what we'll go through today. We're not going to get very unique and individualized solutions for every child all across the board. We're going to go into some broad strategies that you can take away and with some little work by you to individualize and customize for your family or student or child can be successful. Of course, we always want to talk a little bit about the literature and a little bit about the research, but we won't go very much in depth into what all of the literature and research says about sibling and peer relationships among the population with autism. We'll keep it light, but we'll still give you the information. So, just determining that we're using it as a guide for what we're actually going to do in practice and what you can do in your home. We also aren't going to critique other strategies or interventions that are there. We're keeping on focus on things you can do as a parent or a caregiver or service provider to help your child right away, tomorrow, tonight, maybe even. I hope that tonight you can take away something that you can use in your everyday life to set your loved ones or your students or other community members with autism up for success to have fulfilling and meaningful relationships with others. That's really our goal tonight, to give some basic information on how to actually help and create these successful relationships going forward. We'll use lots of examples and scenarios, and we're doing this so that you can find something to help that may be applicable to your child and your family or your classroom. Reviewing the objectives, we'll talk about the many challenges that siblings and peers of children with autism face. There are some that go into the relationship of having a sibling or peer with autism, and we want to talk about it so that we can support that individual as well. We'll also discuss how age and development affect sibling interactions, share some tips for parents to support both children. And this is something that I really will highlight several times as we go through this evening, because sure, the focus is the child with autism and supporting their skills and their growth to interact and maintain in a way that is going to be beneficial for them. But also, we want to think about the typically developing peer or typically developing sibling that might also engage in this interaction, because we want to create not only good interactions, but actually build relationships. And that takes two. So, as we're designing these supports and these interventions for the child with autism, we're also going to think about the typically developing party as well. We're going to emphasize the importance of teaching coping and communication skills to improve sibling relationships. So really, let's get into it. What do we mean by relationships? There's a, we highlighted five here, but really there are so many facets of a relationship. And as we know, there's different types of relationship: coworker, parent and child, romantic relationships. There's so much that goes into relationships. But generally, there's a connection with others at its core. So, relationship refers to the bonds that we form with people in our lives. These are family members, friends, peers. That helps us can feel connected to others. So when looking at your child and their relationships, you can ask yourself, do they seem connected to others? You know what it feels like to be connected to someone, but there are also outward behaviors that are associated to indicate connection, such as seeking other people out, affection, positive affect when in common spaces. So we want to create that connection, because that's the relationship, is that connection. A wonderful component of relationship is emotional support that either party can get out of that relationship. So they provide a space where we feel understood and cared for while offering comfort and reassurance when needed. Maybe your child had a tough day at school and immediately goes to you when they get off the bus. That shows emotional support and stability and comfort. Now, what that actually looks like across different individuals is can be very different. So that might look like a conversation about their day and about their feelings and what happened on the playground. Or it could be the child using their AAC device to request for a hug. It could also look like the child bringing you over to their weighted blanket, and you know that that means they want you to cover them and snuggle them. And then that provides the emotional support for them in that facet. So here in general, regardless of what that interaction actually looks like, you can tell the child feels safe turning to someone for comfort and showing that the relationship does provide them emotional security. And we want everyone to be able to have emotional support within their relationships. Communication and interaction. We know that relationships are built on how we communicate and interact with others. This is sharing thoughts and emotions, Also, while learning to understand one another better is a key component of that. This can be applied to typically developing peers and siblings as well. We know that strong relationships can be built by an understanding of how to communicate and interact with their sibling. So, again, just like that emotional support example, the communication can look different from child to child or relationship to relationship. And being able to recognize that that's what the communication is within that relationship is really meaningful, and supporting everyone involved to understanding that's what that looks like for the individual relationship that we're working with. There's also a component of shared experiences, which is building relationships. It just involves doing things together, working through challenges, creating lasting memories that strengthen the connection. We'll go into this in depth a lot throughout this presentation, but it's important to contrive opportunities for shared experiences across the family unit or the peer relationship. You have to do things together in order to build a really strong relationship. And what those things are, we'll talk about how you can customize that for the individuals that you're working with, or that they're looking to enhance. And then lastly, a sense of belonging. Relationships help us feel like we're part of something bigger, where we are accepted and included. This is very important for everyone's well-being, and we definitely want our kiddos and friends and families with autism to be a part of a community, have a sense of belonging, be accepted, understood, and included. And so working on these relationships can help develop that strong sense in them as well. Regarding autism and social relationships, the research has shown that children with autism have a difficult time with friendships overall. Of course, autism is a spectrum and it doesn't apply to everyone, but overall, friendships can be an area that requires additional support. Generally, children with autism have fewer friendships, they engage in less social activities outside of school, and experience shorter friendships than their peers. And this is really kind of the target area that we want to look at. We want them to, go on play dates, and we want them to be able to have interactions in peer groups, fun on the playground, even. It can be within that school day. And ultimately, friendships that last durations, that they have a friend from high school, when they're in their 40s or 50s. So that's kind of what we're looking to support and create as we go through with some of these strategies. There's also some challenges that siblings of children with autism do face in that sibling relationship. And as we go through, we'll chat about the peer relationship, but also that sibling. So while sibling relationships are important, it's essential to recognize that the siblings of children with autism may not always be developmentally prepared to handle any emotional or psychological stress that might accompany some severe maladaptive behaviors that can be associated with ASD. It poses a unique challenge for families, and we hope that the strategies we share today can further support fostering a positive family dynamic if behaviors are of concern, or if there's some of that goes into the day-to-day interactions within your family unit. Taking this into account, it's important to acknowledge that the pivotal role caregivers, whether that's a teacher or a therapist or an older brother or sister or a parent, play in mitigating the challenges faced by the siblings of children with autism and able to support them to mitigate those. So, by providing support and guidance and also fostering healthy communication from all parties involved, caregivers can help those siblings better navigate their relationship and then also help the sibling or peer with autism gain really great relationships with each other. Caregivers, you really do lay the groundwork for a positive and supportive family environment. This helps siblings build resilience and understanding how to mold and be flexible and evolve in the face of challenges. All of this research tells us that some children need support to build and maintain relationships, and it's simply a skill to learn. And we have to take all parties into account when working on fostering these relationships. What we do know is that friendships are hard. Friendships can be challenging because they require social skills like communication, empathy, and understanding of unspoken rules that can be ever changing from minute to minute or from person to person. And that's very difficult for some individuals. Differences in personalities, interests, and expectations also create obstacles in forming and maintaining strong connections. So that's friendships. Now we know sibling relationships can be even harder. Having a sibling with autism can be challenging. They might struggle with communication, understanding emotions, and social interactions. These difficulties can make it harder for siblings to connect, to play, and build a bond. Many siblings without autism also report maybe feeling stressed or frustrated by certain behaviors that could cause a strain on the relationship. If we're not able to go in the community, they can't go to Chuck E. Cheese or something because of the behaviors or the sensitivities that their sibling with autism might have. That's a component that adds another layer of difficulty, and so we'll work through kind of how to support through that. But on the flip side, we know that relationships can lead to a better quality of life. Everybody needs somebody or multiple people, an entire community. Building social relationships is essential for children with autism. It helps them to develop communication skills, gain emotional support, and also feel that sense of belonging that we're talking about. Positive connections with family, peers, and teachers provide opportunities to practice social interactions at home, at school, and that can translate to the workplace or other areas of the community. Strong relationships can also boost confidence, independence, and overall well-being and improve their quality of life, which is an amazing goal to have. Some core components of development, social relationships are a core component of development for shaping communication skills. There's emotional growth that goes into it and overall well-being. For children with autism, building friendships and sibling bonds might be challenging, as we know, but these connections are pivotal and they provide essential opportunities to develop empathy and social skills and long term independence. Strong relationships not only improve the quality of life, but also foster resilience and a sense of belonging again within the community. And that's crucial for healthy development for everyone. But why are they so difficult? These are some things that there is so much that goes into a relationship or even just a social interaction that off the cuff you might not consider. First of all, communication, being able to express thoughts, feelings, and need clearly and listen actively to others is extremely important. It goes without saying that this aspect can be very difficult for people with autism, but honestly, for anybody in general as well. I know everyone here can think back to a time when they didn't communicate their emotions or their thoughts well, and it didn't end in the most ideal interaction, or it might even end in a relationship. A lot rides on good communication in relationships. There's also that nonverbal communication or those social cues. So, interpreting body language, facial expressions, and even tone of voice. Using all of these cues to respond appropriately goes into developing that relationship. Things like personal space, having headphones in while you're walking down the street, smiling or even furrowing your brow all communicate major things to those around you without ever uttering a sound. So this adds another layer of complexity in the communication factor. There's also a component of perspective taking. So being able to see situations from another person's point of view, it's an obscure concept. Our experience and our point of view make us who we are, and it's accumulation of so much environmental input. It's extremely difficult to cast all of that aside and put yourself in someone else's shoes who have completely different environmental input and different factors and different things that made their perspective what it is. There's also a component of conflict resolution, so handling disagreements respectfully and finding solutions without damaging the relationship. Compromising is hard, sharing is hard, but all of things are necessary within a healthy relationship. Of course, trust goes without saying, developing that sense of safety and reliability and flexibility. You have to be able to adapt to different social situations. In some situations, same environment with different people, there's completely different social rules, and you have to adapt. Then, in different environments with the same people, there also could be a bunch of different expectations there. And so, being able to be flexible and adapt and be aware of social cues is extraordinarily important, but very difficult as well. And then lastly, initiating and maintaining interactions, taking the lead in social situations and keeping interactions going to strengthen that bond is very important and also very difficult. Relationships are a give and take, so it's important to support our friends and family with autism, and also typically developing throughout both of these aspects, which we'll go into depth as we go through some of the tips and tricks. How to help. So this is what we're waiting for. These are the tips for guiding your child through establishing and maintaining positive social relationships. And as I mentioned, we will chat about the perspective of the child with autism and what you can do to support them, and then also flip it over to the peer or sibling that might be involved in the interaction. So the first thing that we really need to do is open the door. And what does that mean? It's basically setting the foundation for social interactions to be enjoyable. So you might feel like your child doesn't care about relationships because there isn't that much interest in interacting with others. Or maybe your child has too much interest in others, and that could also lead for some uncomfortable situations. As we know, many people with autism struggle with social relationships, but you can help, and there's ways that we can support them through that. For successful and meaningful relationships to develop, we must open the door and create an environment where it's enjoyable for them to contact the social world around them. Typically, developing peers and siblings have an easier time finding motivation and enjoyment intrinsically with social interactions. For some of our friends with autism, we sometimes have to teach and support them to find social interactions motivating and fun. And opening that door and showing them that social interactions are fun and enjoyable can start right at home. So, we're going to talk about some key areas today and how they can all come together to establish amazing groundwork for children with autism and their typically developing siblings and peers to interact, bond, and connect. So, some steps to start opening that door is creating a space for time and fun. So, we'll discuss pairing the typically developing sibling or peer with reinforcement or fun activities regularly throughout the week or the month or the year, it's to set the stage for social interactions to be enjoyable. If I do something fun with people, the whole interaction seems fun, or the relationship can develop as an enjoyable experience and find intrinsic motivation for hanging out or interacting with someone else. We'll take a look at how to be positive and a good model for social interactions. As we discussed, there's so many aspects to any social interaction, and we want to ensure that they have a model for desired expectation on both ends of the interaction. So that's for the child with autism and their peer or sibling. We'll also talk about identifying common interests to support in the success of the interaction. It's difficult enough to build relationships. Let's not make it harder than it needs to be. To start out, let's do something that everybody likes and what the common interests, so we're setting a good brickwork for all of those great things that can develop from there on out. Lastly, we'll discuss supporting when needed, contriving opportunities for practice, and how to build time into your regular schedule to foster positive interactions between your kids and celebrating every win along the way. Um, Rewarding all successes, even the small ones, is extremely important. Setting clear expectations and ending on a good note versus pushing it until it potentially turns into a negative interaction or people have hit their limits is something that we want to avoid. Even small successes can snowball into greater and greater and greater achievements. For the peer and sibling, how we open the door for them. So it's important to involve peers and siblings in the planning of social interactions. We want them to know what to expect as well and tell them what everyone's working towards. It's important to look at both perspectives. We want to open the door for the child with autism, but you should also open that door for the typically developing sibling or peer. Setting clear expectations can increase their sense of control over this experience, as well as their confidence in their ability to engage with their sibling. As a result, siblings may be more likely to remain involved and supportive in the experience long term. So, being transparent about the expectations and what we're looking for during this playtime or during this interaction is really a great way to start and be supportive, and provide the typically developing peer or sibling with reinforcement as well. So, for example, today I really want Johnny to ask you for a turn with the slide. I'm going to help him do this. I'll give you a thumbs up when it's time to switch. Don't worry, you'll get lots of time to play with the slide. So, in this example, we're setting an expectation of what the goal is, what we're working for. Taking turns on the slide, and then how we're going to achieve that with support from the family, and then also ensuring them that they will also get to work towards something fun too, which will be having a lot of time on the slide if that's something that's preferred to them. Then also providing that reinforcement and that praise and celebrating those little successes, whether, how big or small they are. So you were such a great helper with Katie today. You get 10 more minutes of tablet time tonight because you were such a great brother or sister or peer. Thanks for being a great big brother. Giving them reinforcement as well, so that they also want to keep interacting with their counterpart with autism. Additionally, when we're opening the doors for the sibling and peer, it can feel like, just in your daily life that you might be dedicating 100% of your time to one child's needs. However, involving the sibling when possible can help to balance your time with everyone. So maybe you have a Saturday with brother planning meeting and you're saying, okay, on Saturday we're going to take Johnny out. Where do you want to go or what do you think he'll like? And engaging them is you're giving, the typically developing sibling or peer attention, which is great all around. We want everyone to get equal attention, and also involving them, which gives them a sense of responsibility, and a sense of engagement that will create their buy-in and maintain their interest in the interaction. So ensuring that it's balancing the whole experience is a balance for everyone. You're providing praise for your kiddo with autism for making eye contact or sharing or giving a high five, and you're also equally providing support and reinforcement and praise for the typically developing sibling or peer for all of the great things that they're also doing within the interaction. It's a team effort. So recognizing and praising everyone is for being a good role model, even is something that we can do and encourage. And then going back to those common interests, using activities that all the children in the experience enjoy will increase the likelihood of an enjoyable experience all around for everyone. And then, going forward, they'll seek out those fun experiences with their sibling, which goes into what makes a relationship. You have to do things together to create that strong supportive bond. And then lastly, encouraging that fair treatment to provide equal attention to all children involved. It's going to help discourage resentment and sibling rivalry and encourage positive social interactions. We want to mention that sibling rivalries are obviously common and expected. That happens with every sibling, me and my sister as well. It happens with everybody. We don't want this to tip the scale to be the bulk of the interaction between the children. So some is typical and some is going to happen, but providing equal treatment, equal attention, and equal opportunity for engagement will mitigate that rivalry taking up the bulk of the interactions between the siblings. Uh, Creating a time and space for fun. So it's important to set up opportunities for siblings and peers to interact, doing something the child with autism likes to do without the pressure of interacting in a specific way. So when we're starting out to build a relationship, we just want our friends to hang out, to spend time together doing something that's preferred. So if your child likes water play, bring your kiddos to the pool. Or if your child likes animals, can you watch watch an animal video or take them to the zoo or the park. Just setting the space for fun opportunities and enjoyment to have while the sibling and the sibling with autism and their typically developing sibling are in the same space together. So you can adapt some activities so that all children can participate. So if slime is a huge preference, but maybe your child doesn't like the way that slime feels, maybe your child does like Play-Doh or sand. You can use some adaptations to create common ground where it might not be on the surface. So maybe it feels like your kiddos do not have common interests, but with some tweaking and some customization, for example, here, you can create that space for time and fun. Playing red light, green light, but maybe your child has a hard time following directions. Use prompts, use pictures, use hand motions, hug them to stop when it's red light. Whatever the case is, so that it's adaptable to both kiddos involved in the interaction is something that will take some creativity, but is extremely important. The small details in these types of interactions will create a positive association between the activity and the sibling and peer. This will be the foundation for establishing enjoyment within social interactions. I want to get a little technical for a second and kind of give an example. So when say my cousin comes over, and every time my cousin comes over, I get banana splits. Banana split is my favorite dessert. Every time my cousin comes over, I get banana splits. That's my opportunity for space for fun. It is that we're eating banana splits together. Every time my cousin comes over, we get to have this activity together. Now, I love when my cousin comes over because every time they do, I get my favorite dessert. So that's really the foundation. If your child receives ABA therapy, maybe when they were initially learning some skills, the technician or the BCBA might have used food or toys along with high fives and thumbs up and praises for doing, a task or completing a skill correctly. Over time, you might have noticed that food or the really super reinforcing iPad may have faded out over time, and then just high fives were enough of a praise or enough of a social reinforcement for the kiddo to continue to display that skill and continue to make progress. So over time, that banana split can go away. So maybe, next time my cousin comes over, we get a banana split at the end of the interaction or after we go outside. Or maybe now I don't get it every single time that my cousin comes over, but because I created the space for fun, for me to enjoy myself eating that banana split, I realized, oh, I actually do like going outside with my cousin. Oh, I actually do like watching TV. Or now I have created that social motivation between the cousins in this example, starting with the banana split, but ultimately fading out. And then now this really great relationship is there. So those are some things that you can consider when you're trying to create this space is what's a really good activity that, foolproof, it'll be very fun. And then over time, for example, we can change that and mold that and maybe have some of the typically developing sibling or peer engage to change what that activity looks like. So if your child likes to jump, you go to a trampoline park together. That's no a no a not very difficult place to have a lot of fun in if your child likes to jump. Then over time, you chat with the sibling and you're saying, "What else that we can do that Johnny might like?" And then maybe, they go outside and they create a hopscotch board together, and now we're jumping playing hopscotch. And that's how you can set that foundation for great relationships, by starting with something super, super high and super, super reinforcing, and then over time, tweaking that a little bit while that relationship is developing because we've had that space to interact and it's been enjoyable for me. For the sibling and peer, so taking it on the flip side, we want to avoid any unnecessary emotional or physical pressure because siblings of children with autism can also take on the role of like a second parent or, in care and discipline. So allowing siblings or peers the opportunity to engage and disengage throughout the activity so that they don't feel like they have to be on throughout the entire interaction. So if you're at the trampoline park and one sibling loves the blue trampoline and the other sibling wants to play basketball and the trampoline basketball court, you let the typically developing sibling come on the blue trampoline for some time, but then also take time for themselves to go to the basketball court trampoline so that they don't have to be on throughout the entire interaction, because that can be, a labor intensive, especially on a younger kiddo, depending on the age of the peer or the sibling. And lastly, through our slogan here will be make it fun for everyone. If the activity is not preferred by the sibling or peer, make sure that they also receive some form of reinforcement for participating. So it might have to be external. So we'll go to the trampoline park for 20 minutes, and then afterwards you can get your iPad if that's the typically developing peer's highest reinforcer. So there might have to be some external contingencies in there, but as long as you're setting the expectation and being clear, and showing them what everyone's worked for, as we talked about earlier, you can create the space for time, create the time for and space for fun successfully. You as a caregiver, or a BCBA or teacher, or a preschool teacher, whatever the case is in your case, should be a strong model for both of the kiddos involved in the interactions. As we chatted about, social interactions are hard and extremely complex, even for adults, especially when some of these skills are deficient in some of our learners. There are dozens of actions involved in engaging and interpreting any social interaction, even those that last only a second. The social guidelines are ever changing and it's not always obvious. So, for example, how close a person stands to you, if their body language is open for interaction, if it's closed off, tone of voice, eye contact, facial expressions, volume, all of that good stuff. We want everybody involved in the interaction, to be a strong model so that they have good examples of what is expected or what these desired behaviors are. You want to model those behaviors that you want your children to exhibit. So it could be appropriately initiating social interactions and conversations, maybe saying "excuse me" when we're interrupting, or whatever the case is. You want to be the good model. Sharing, joint play or joint attention, being flexible in different circumstances. So that could go into compromise or sharing. Being a great model yourself is one of the best things that you can do, and also explaining throughout the narrating what the model is in this instance. I want to play with Jack's blocks, so I'm going to ask Jack, "Hey, can I have some of your blocks?" Cool, Jack gave it to me. That was great. Narrating is such a powerful tool that we can use in this, but also just in general, in life, when we're working to develop some skills. If your child can see these skills regularly, they might incorporate them into their own behavior, which can lead to successful interactions with others overall. For the sibling and peer side of this, with being a strong model, social interactions between siblings and peers, can be difficult, as we've mentioned. So it's important for the parents, the teachers, and caregivers to also be strong models for how that typically developing sibling or peer should interact with their peer or sibling with autism. How can they be a supportive partner in an interaction? And by you setting that expectation and setting that great model, they'll learn. They'll learn from the things that you're doing and be able to incorporate that in their own behavior. So, for example, those positive communication skills. So, parents can model effective verbal and nonverbal communication by using clear, respectful language, active listening, and appropriate body language. This all can teach both children in the interaction how to engage in a meaningful conversation. And as we know, communication is a key component of a relationship. So tying that all back in from the start. Showing empathy and emotional regulation by expressing empathy in difficult situations and managing their own emotions calmly, you as parents or caregivers can help the children learn to recognize and appropriately respond to their own and each other's emotions. And so this is specifically important for the typically developing sibling and peer. Say the sibling or peer with autism is in the midst of a tantrum or some type of maladaptive behavior. The way that you respond to those behaviors is something that is can be a model, or how you support the child with autism through that dysregulated event, is a great model for how the sibling or peer can do that in their own interaction. So you're giving them these skills, to interact in a way that's supportive for their counterpart with autism, by being a great model. Regarding problem solving and conflict resolutions, you as caregivers or parents can model how to address conflicts constructively. You can discuss problems openly. Sometimes this might require, say, a picture card. If conflict is arising around sharing, for example, you as the parent or caregiver can show the typically developing sibling or peer how to maybe use the My Turn card or use the AAC device, or how they can prompt a sharing an experience, which ultimately leads to the conflict resolution. And then lastly, promoting inclusive and respectful behavior. By treating everyone with kindness and respect, you as caregivers will demonstrate the importance of inclusivity and teaching children how to form positive relationships with diverse individuals and just everyone around. We also want to support when needed. So as we chatted about, modeling is a great way to teach new behaviors. You want to be that supportive model. But modeling isn't the end all be all for all individuals that we might be engaging with or supporting. Gives the support the way that they need it. So you might need to be a little bit more direct with how you can help. So for example, you can support through prompting. So that's guiding toward a correct response that can't be done independently. So maybe they can't follow the direction, give this juice to your sister. No problem. You can help them by providing prompts. So you can say, give this juice to your sister as you support them to pick up the juice and walk them over to where their sister is. And then when the sister says thank you, you can also prompt them to sign thank you, by helping move their hand that signing communication. Prompting will look different for everyone in every situation, but use what works best for the activity and the individuals at hand. Social stories are also an extraordinarily powerful tool when we're working on social interactions or social relationships. Clear, simple stories to teach social behaviors and expectations are extremely important. So you might use a social story for a child that has a hard time keeping their distance from their peers. The social story could say things like, when I'm near my friends, I have to keep my hands to myself. People don't like if I grab their arms suddenly. That could be a social story that you support your child through, and understanding the social expectations that go on in a relationship or in an interaction. There's so many social stories available for free online. So that's a resource that you could Google. You could chat GPT it, if you wanted to. There's lots of social stories available, and they're a very powerful tool. So a quick Google might be able to help you, for whatever situation that you might need to support and prompt through. Priming just means, preparing your child to get ready for something before it actually happens. So giving your child a heads up before a new social situation or expectation. You're just letting them know what to expect, and what they'll be doing and how they can be successful. So if you're going to the park, your plan is for them to play tag with their sibling, just tell them, we're going to go to the park and you're going to play tag with your sibling. Priming can help your child feel less anxious, more confident, and understand what the expectation is. And then lastly, redirection. It might be needed. It's guiding away from a inappropriate or the undesired behavior to a more appropriate response. Especially early on when we're fostering these really great relationships and teaching these skills, you might need to redirect, to show them what the more appropriate interaction will be in the situation. You might to redirect your child away from throwing rocks and towards the slide where their sibling is. Redirection is powerful, but it will look different for each child in each situation. In summary, supporting when needed for your child with autism, or your student or your peer. The goal is just to make the interaction successful and teach skills directly as well as indirectly as possible. So modeling is a wonderful way. We should always be modeling and narrating and all of that great stuff, but you might need to step in a little further, and prompting, social stories, priming, and redirection are some really great ways to be able to carry that out. Keeping in the same vein, supporting when needed for the siblings and peers. So don't forget that your other children and your children's peers, they might need some support too. So the same strategies can be used with the siblings and peers. I don't know why my graphic isn't showing up here, but with those, when you're doing the prompting, you can still prompt the sibling and peer on how to interact with the child with autism, or how to respond to a behavior, or how to interact with them and get them to engage back. Social stories can work on the flip side of the coin as well. This is the expectation for our social interaction. We're going to go to the trampoline park. First, you're going to play on the blue trampoline with Jack, and then you can go and do your basketball trampoline experience as well. Priming, giving them that expectation, and then social stories and redirection are all within the appropriate level of support if you need to get in there a little bit more directly. You're still setting clear expectations for the sibling and peers, but you're allowing them the opportunity to take the lead on the interaction. Oh, there it goes. So there we go, prompting, guiding toward the correct response, as we mentioned, clear and simple stories. So you can use those for the typically developing child in the interaction as well, and then priming and redirection. Sorry about that. Uh, we're also going to create opportunities for practice and reinforcement. So it's extremely important that your child can contact reinforcement for positive social interactions in order for them to engage in them in the future. Reinforcement always wins. Reinforcement is the key. Making sure your child contacts reinforcement for positive social interactions will make them more likely to continue doing so. So, for example, they engage in a new desired behavior of asking for a turn. If they're not given a turn, they're less likely to ask for a turn again in the future. When we're working on fostering these relationships, we want to make sure that every succession of a desired or a new social behavior that is positive is rewarded. So starting small, it might be the initial way to reinforce. It's unlikely that there will be a 3 hour long positive social interaction where they're going to the mall and they're doing the claw machine and having lunch. That is an extremely large goal to be able to engage in that. Starting small, maybe just having a successful car ride where they're watching a mutual video, and then we're building up to these larger and larger goals. So it's better to have a shorter expectation so that the interaction ends positively, aka they can contact reinforcement for the positive experience. Repeated practice is key. So it's not going to be a one-time quick fix, or a quick way to foster those relationships. We need opportunities to practice. The skills are difficult, as we know, and identifying as many opportunities to incorporate practice as possible is ultimately what's going to be the best case scenario. We want to meet them where they are and build up from there. So you might not be able to maintain the interaction for a long period of time, but that's okay. Starting small and then work your way up, because practice makes perfect. We want to make sure that all parties contact reinforcement for their interaction. So making sure all children involved contact that positive reinforcement, whatever that might be. So that'll again take some customizing on your guys' end, and you know your children or your students the best. So that should be something that you can easily incorporate. We want to make sure the interaction is enjoyable for everyone. So to wrap it up, what can you do today? What could you do tonight? It's a lot of information, and you might be thinking, where do I even start with this? But some simple ways that you can begin building these relationships today are in those small steps and making sure that you feel comfortable with the process. The first thing that you can do is make a list of activities that your children enjoy. This whole process may be smoother and accepted by both children if it's fun and enjoyment is at the center of the interaction. Maybe at first it seems like your children enjoy very different things, like we mentioned earlier. One likes jumping on the trampoline at the park, while the other prefers to spend quiet time in their room with their tablet. Try simplifying it and looking to be a bit more narrow. Do they both like chicken nuggets? Potentially, you can bring home fast food. And then the meal time is the positive interaction and the positive experience. Fostering relationships and bonding over a positive, enjoyable activity is a great place to start. And then over time, you can change that banana split or change that trampoline park into a hopscotch game or something that is less preferred, but equally enjoyable for both of the people in the interaction. Maybe your child needs accommodations to enjoy some activities, and that's absolutely okay. That's where the individualization is going to come in on your guys' part. Take a step back and think, what could I do to help my child engage in this activity to the best of their ability? Meet them where they are, be good models, support indirectly as a model or directly through social stories or priming if needed. Um, for example, when if they're like tossing bean bags, you can have them stand closer to their peer to toss that bean bag or give different items to throw. You can mold and shift this over time in a way that is creating successive approximations of that desired behavior that you're looking for. But the most important part of all is to just be patient. And you can expect that 3 hour long social interaction from the start. If it doesn't go well the first time, that's completely okay. It will take time. Don't be hard on yourself and stay positive. Consistently bring in the typically developing peer or sibling in the interaction. Maybe you're stumped and kids are creative. So loop them in and see how we can brainstorm great activities or fun things that both kiddos can interact with and have a positive, enjoyable experience. So use the resources at your disposal. And it's okay if it doesn't go well the first time. Just remember those tools that you have in your toolkit. Maybe you need to create the space for fun. So a less pressure interaction of something super positive, reinforce successive little wins throughout the day. And also be a great model and support when needed. So celebrate those small victories. It's going to take time to get there, but a positive journey is always better than a hectic one or a stressful one. In summary, family and sibling peer interactions, they influence family dynamics. And so we want to make them as strong and as supportive as possible. Those positive interactions are positively correlated with overall family satisfaction. We want to create a positive interaction so that the family bond can be strengthened, and sharing mutually enjoyable activities can foster feelings of connectedness between siblings and promote a shared family identity. And that sounds like an amazing goal to achieve. We will, after the webinar, you will receive an email, as Shelly mentioned, and it has a helpful handout for you that just really goes over some of the tips and tricks that we talked about for your reference as you go down the line and maybe start customizing some of these broader tips into what will actually work for your family or your child that you're working with. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me this evening for this hour, and I really do hope that you've taken something away that you can start with tonight or start with next week. And if not, that's okay too. Just plan and start small, and you'll work up to the goal that you're looking for sure.
Thank you so much, Brittany.
Thank you.
All right. And again, this is recorded. Thank you.